Tawanda, clearly from our side, we're in a natural resources industry. We're focusing on mining, we're focusing on oil and gas. And maybe from your side, your view on what's happening in the mining industry currently?
I think it's a divergent market at the moment. You've got some commodities which really have increased in price, naming point gold. On the other end of things, you look at things like diamonds, prices are under quite a lot of pressure. So it makes for interesting times. And it is really about, for the clients banking the commodity cycle at that point in time. I don't know what your views are in terms of crystal ball 2020, where we're going to be.
Investment into the industry is very important, but it's actually, there's a few factors that's very important. We need, in each and every African country, we need stability from a political environment point of view. Clearly, commodity prices, should obviously play ball as well as part of the focus into the industry. And again, clear regulations from the various governments is very important for the industry. We've seen in South Africa as well with the mining charter, that's out there. Obviously in the process, it was tabled and was put out there. If we can have a successful implementation of that mining charter, it will go a long way in actually stabilizing the industry as well. The African countries, once again, each and every African country is going through a whole lot of elections. There's uncertainty on what's going to be the outcome of those elections. And that's going to play a very big role in which companies are going to invest to actually use, funds to increase CapEx spend, to explore, new areas, new commodities, etc. So it's very dependent on the regulatory stability in the countries.
That's very interesting you say that. I mean, what I've found is, you look at labor here in South Africa. Thank goodness the gold strike at the protracted negotiations at Sibanye have come to an end. So I think as a gold industry, at least we've got that tick for the next 2-3 years. Platinum at the moment, they're in their current negotiations. But I think, I think level heads will prevail this time around, unlike the previous platinum challenges we had. So hopefully we'll see that ticked off quite quickly. But from your perspective, why is it different from a South Africa perspective to an Africa perspective, from a labor perspective? Because you tend to find that South Africa tends to have a more protracted labor situation as opposed to Africa.
I do think South Africa was in the past so reliant on the precious metal industry. If you look at where, for example, all the platinum mines are really situated, on the eastern and western limb, in Rustenburg. If you look at, for example, again, the gold mines as well, they're all very close to each other. We've picked up that actually plays a very big role, in labor disruptions, etc. I'm mentioning that point. If you look at diamond companies as well, diamond companies, and this is clearly a personal opinion, they are all scattered, over South Africa. And you hardly get, for example, labor disruptions, in the diamond industry. So for us as well, geography plays a very big role in that. If you look at the various African countries, I do think we might not always see labor disruptions happening in those various jurisdictions that we are talking about, but I do think it's there, but in a lesser way. Really, that's just my view on why I think it's a bit more obvious in the South African space. But Tawanda, from a risk management point of view, with the volatility in exchange rates and commodity prices as well, and we've seen over the last few days what, for example, has happened to an oil price. Can you first maybe talk about risk management, in general, and maybe go through to the various commodities and what we can help companies with in looking at, maybe stabilizing their financial, results, that they have to put through to the market?
I think from my perspective, really, hedging for me is really about free cash flow generation, bringing certainty for your shareholders. I think, in this current environment, when you do look at your precious metals companies, it helps in that, and the theme, I've been to a couple of results presentation, the overarching theme at the moment really is about paying back debt, and then after that, declaring all the free cash flow out to your shareholders. We as a bank have been very involved around assisting our clients with hedging. The current products out there, I think, takes many forms. Most of them tend to prefer zero-cost collars, whereby you're having a floor and a cap, and in essence, you're basically banking that differential between the two. I think the theme also coming through from overseas, we've seen one or two Australian companies also enter the hedging world. Yeah.
So, and I can just pick up from that as well. It's very important for not just the entity itself, the mining entity, but also for the banks to assist the client in obviously protecting their revenue lines. So in most instances, the client wants to protect that they can't go below, for example, the current price, but we don't, in our advices to the clients, we don't restrict them, to the upside of any commodity cycle. So that's important to protect the revenue line for the client, and that also helps the serviceability of our loans, etc. So that's how I also see risk management strategies.
Given that we are part of the natural resources team, and mining is only one part of that, I think maybe if you could just elaborate on the other industries which or sectors which fall under the natural resources sector. And just picking up on that, maybe if you could just, talk to us about oil and gas.
Clearly, from an Absa natural resources point of view, we look after the mining and metals, we look after oil and gas, as well as commodity trading and related industries, that forms a very big part, of that group of industries that I've just mentioned. I think we would like to be supportive of all the clients, through the various cycles, and we're really talking about credit cycles, market cycles, commodity cycles, etc. And I think, one that we're getting more and more involved in is obviously the oil and gas sector. From our side, our involvement, on the offshore oil fields, I think we are very big, in obviously supporting clients in that instance, from a balance sheet support point of view, and that can actually cover many products, many services, etc. But it ultimately comes down, what is the best solution, for that specific financing need? And that's what we try and facilitate as well with the clients. If I look at, our commitment in Mozambique, for example, with the big LNG projects that's happening there, and everyone knows about Exxon and everyone knows about the Anadarko projects. I mean, for us, it's also very important sitting here at the bottom of Africa to make sure that we help in the success of the other African countries, and therefore our involvement, on the Mozambican side. So our commitment, for the fields offshore, where Mozambique has got 128 TCFs that they've got out there, and our big 128 TCFs are, if one TCF is 170 million barrels of oil equivalent. If our Mozambican counterparts can get that right, the success of Mozambique, nobody would look. Everyone can just look ahead. So I think that is very important for us, involvement in the African countries as well, because we are an African bank, a Pan-African bank with many operations across the continent. And we work together with our local counterparts to make sure that we assist, with the upbuilding of the economies.